Hanji, welcome to another episode of the Not in the Clouds podcast, and we've been away for a while.
It's season 2.
But I think it's good to be back.
Yeah, I mean, nothing exciting. I mean, I signed up to be one of the first people to watch this new documentary. It's from the creators who made Cowspiracy and Seaspiracy. Okay. And they created a new one called Christspiracy. Give that a watch. Yeah. Highly recommend it. I was surprised to learn that Jesus was a vegetarian.
Hang on a minute. That doesn't make sense.
He was not a vegetarian.
Good documentary. Some really interesting insights as to why Jesus was crucified.
Before we go into that, the places of worship have always intrigued me. So, massive churches. I mean, I've just come back on holiday from Malta, and the churches and how outwardly beautiful they've, really glorified everything. And it's really cool. But if you actually think about the architecture of a church and then the architecture of sort of some of the original Gurdwara, and I mean, Guru Ramdas Ji started Harmandir Sahib, the Golden Temple. And if you actually look at Darbar Sahib compared to these churches, I'm not comparing the two, but if you look at the size of them, those churches are huge. They're like big, grotesque buildings with the most, amount of paintings, the amount of money that they spent on.
Beautiful facades as well. Yeah. Beautiful glass windows, decorations, and like the sound as well. Yeah. It's all like engineered, isn't it, to create this?
I don't know. I get the sound and the immersive experience thing, but what I don't understand is, I mean, I always thought religion was insular, meaning, you're looking within. Those big grotesque buildings, I don't know whether they would help you look inwards, because you're always looking outside to, how Jesus looks in that picture, or how, the huge stained glass windows are, and your senses and everything are just taken in awe by everything around you.
I think we're going off on a tangent, but we can finish this. But in terms of architecture, I think one thing that I've always thought about in terms of the architecture of buildings that are inspired by, let's be honest, an element of divinity, that it was divinely inspired. Therefore, the building was created. Meaning, it wasn't a building created for a family to live in. It wasn't a building created for commerce. It wasn't a building created to do trade. It was a building created to worship God. So, okay, let's put one side. That's the thing that we have in common. That's why these buildings were created. But the one thing I'm always thinking is, what inspires people to go above and beyond what you would normally do for your house of residence, and what made it? It's like, for example, you see some of these old cathedrals. Like, for example, you see the Vatican, and you see, like, even the Church of England church that is near Parliament. Like, you got these facades, and people are honing these skills of carving and creating these frescoes through inspiration via divinity. That's where all of this art comes from. That's where, technically, that's where culture comes from. Like, we take these paintings for granted, but most of the time, nobody was painting for the sake of painting. Like, it was this intrinsic, like, okay, let me try and understand myself, and let me put myself onto this painting. It's the same with these buildings. I think it's just a representation of the people at the time. And I think that's why they've changed over time. That then it was a priority. Therefore, people spent their whole lives building those buildings. Whereas now we want the quick fix, and we need to create the Gurdwara, we need to create the church, we need to create the mosque in the quickest time possible, because that's the only way you're going to get people in, and then that's the only way you're going to get your donations in.
So I disagree. I feel a purpose-built building makes you evoke certain emotions. So you walk into a building that's carved for a certain way, that's, lit in a certain way, that, the pictures are evoking certain emotions, the smell is evoking certain emotions, where is lit. So, I mean, a vivid image that always comes to my head is Harmandir early morning. I mean, it's a recent thing. If we go to Bani Sahib and you're there and you walk into Harmandir and you go before the Asa Diwar, and it's very dimly lit, and the feeling walking into Harmandir, I'm sure that you guys are probably walking through this in your mind now when you're walking up to it, how you're feeling.
I think we're saying the same thing. I think the only difference is because of that lifestyle that you're talking about, of where people are practically living that lifestyle. I think that lifestyle is what makes what is creating that feeling, not the building. And I think without that, if nobody was going there, it wouldn't have the same effect.
It's good to have like a communal space where you can go and congregate, but that's not the end of it. Do you know what I mean? Like that Gurdwara is inside of you as well. So to go back to my earlier point, Sahib, the whole documentary isn't just about Jesus being vegetarian. It's always been about the money. Like places of worship back then became slaughterhouses essentially, and it became a means of priests making money from Aam Admi through slaughter, and Jesus opposed that. Okay, this is a massive spoiler to the whole thing. Jesus opposed it and was crucified for it.
Over the summer, went India. The Prayogs were happening, so I got to participate in the Prayog.
Did you go anywhere other than Punjab?
No.
No, which is fair.
To be fair, anytime I go, my boundary is Punjab. I think the only other place I actually want to go to beyond that is Hazur Sahib. Otherwise, I don't really have a lot of interest. So after a long time, I got to go see Anandpur Sahib, and alongside that, I got to go Naina Devi. So we got the actual route is beautiful. So a lot of it you can travel by car now, and the actual final, like when you need to do the trek, they've created the stairs. Like for example, Asapa probably knows more, but do you know Dadu Door? Yeah, do you know how the stairs are there? Like the stairs, but you can't, like you wouldn't call them proper built up stairs. Like they're kind of like that. But beautiful. Like when you're traveling up, the views are amazing. The locals there, they say that the Havan that is still being continued there is said to be the same Havan that Guru Gobind Singh Ji conducted. So yeah, it was really nice to go there as well. Got to go.
You saw the Havan? You saw
everything? I saw the Havan. Yeah. Saw the Havan. Got to do Gardanti Shastrana Mala.
Nice.
Really nice. Like I felt like when I didn't plan on doing that actually, but I thought, oh, we're here, and the Barney where Guru Gobind Singh Ji mentions their own name as Gobind Singh is Ugardanti, so I thought it was fitting.
Walk us through your Darbar Sahib experience. So, did you go Amrit Vela? Did you go during the day?
Like we left when it was Amrit Vela, so we left about 3-4. Yeah. And then we got there. It takes about, from Ludhiana, it took, in the morning time, it took about 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
Like when you got there, just naturally, you just feel like doing a parikrama, but like not for the sake of it, but just so you can take everything in, if that makes sense. And you're walking around, and first, like from where we had entered, the first thing I saw was Baba Burdaji's Asthan, like the tree that where they would actually do all of the management of Darbar Sahib, and actually what they've done really well is writing everything next to where their Asthan is. So yeah, that's like one of them, and then the Baba Deep Singh Ji's Asthan is there. That's currently being built. You know the Sakhi of the Bibi, she gets married and her husband has I think leprosy. Bibi Rajni, that's it. And got to see that as well. Then I got to go Akal Takht Sahib, and that was quite interesting because I always had heard about the place that has been left for where there used to be the Dasam Granth Sahib Prakash, and you can actually see that there's actually a square there which is always kept, like it had some flowers there, and that was quite interesting. And then going around, what else was there? And then the one thing I actually had never seen was the museum. But before that, we got in line to Matha Tek. And there, one thing I didn't know, because I hadn't been for maybe 18 to 20 years. Like I only went when I was younger.
Yeah. And
it takes a while actually. So it was about an hour to 2 hours just waiting in line. And what was quite beautiful is when you go in. Like I don't know if a lot of people know this actually, but you can go upstairs. Yeah. So there's steps, and when you go upstairs, when you're at the first, like the ground level, you're there. And then when you go up to the second level, there's another Sri Ad Guru Granth Sahib there, Prakash. And that Sri Ad Guru Granth Sahib, I wanted to ask, but there was nothing there written. But the size of that Sri Ad Guru Granth Sahib was
Huge.
massive.
Yeah.
You've seen it, right? That I didn't know about that, so I'm not sure what the history of that is. And then after that, the one thing that I don't know if it was new or not something I knew of, is there's a museum as well. And when you walk in the museum, you have to go up quite a few steps. And there they've got like the original, do you know, like the painting that we normally see of like Bhai Gurdas Ji, and like some of the original paintings that we see, all of the originals were in that museum. Like when I saw, those were the original paintings. And like some original, like, for example, if you've seen some of the old Janam Sakhis, some of the original like versions of like the illustrations from the Janam Sakhis, there's a whole room just for that. Then there was a couple of rooms where it was just portraits. Like, for example, they had a portrait of Bhai Maharaj Singh there. They had a portrait of Baba Bir Singh there, Baba Sher Singh. Like, it was beautiful. Like, it was anybody that goes, I definitely would recommend going to that museum, because there was so much stuff there. I didn't have enough time to actually fully appreciate it.
I haven't done much, to be fair, but what I have been sort of contemplating on a little bit is samdrishti. Obviously, the concept of Advait and these things are huge concepts, and they come out with samdrishti, essentially seeing everyone as one. But how is that actually possible? Like, I can't. If you see someone, you know that you feel a certain empathy towards someone, whatever the situation is. You know, you'll always care and you'll always ask, okay, how are you doing? But essentially, when it goes further than that, so different people need different things in different situations, of course. But how do you treat everyone as one? Because if you see somebody down the street and they're saying, I need £10 because my phone's broken or whatever, the compassionate side of you always wants you to be like, yeah, give him £10. He's, probably needs it. But the other side is like, you hear this, and I've definitely thought this as well. He's going to go buy drugs, or he's going to buy alcohol, and he's going to be an abuser, because those things don't align with me, as in drinking, alcohol, abuse and substance abuse or whatever. And that's why I don't want to fund it. But is that actually seeing everyone as samdrishti?
I agree with you, Paji, that in the sense it seems like unattainable.
Yeah.
Even though we know it's possible, but for us where we're at right now, it does seem unattainable. I think you get tastes of it, but to have that constantly, I guess that's why there's both of the concepts, right? You've got samdarsi, and then you've gone the other side of the coin. You've got samvarti as well. Essentially, that's what adrishti should become, is whether the person that comes to us, we get the feeling that they're being honest, or whether the person that comes to us and we feel they're being dishonest. The same. Maybe you treat them differently, but you recognize them as the same. Your kind of the emotions that kind of well up within you are equal for both.
You'd always cast some level of judgment.
When we contemplate on something and our mind has a thought on what we're contemplating, is that always judgment?
Ooh, that's a good one.
It's too abstract to apply that to every thought we have. I don't think every thought. Are you saying is every thought?
Not every thought. Like, for example, where he said that when you are in these situations, we always will judge. And I'm thinking, that thought that we have in that moment, is it judgment, or is it just purely just an opinion? Okay.
Where we've all been in that situation, right? And then like somebody comes up, we've got some change. The day that these people start carrying contactless readers is the day I'm finished, because then I can't say, sorry, I've got no change on me. Right?
But to be fair, that's true as well.
But then what do you say? Take all my bank account. Take everything. Take the roti out of my wife's mouth there. You can't. There's
that's
limit.
what I'm saying. Like, in that moment where, for example, they put in front of you the contactless reader, and you're thinking, oh, this might not be genuine. I don't think you can call that judgment. I just think you can call that common sense. To be fair, there's certain people I know that get around this situation in a very, very beautiful way. Like,
speaking no English.
I know my English breaking up very badly. Somebody came to pick me up from Delhi airport. When we was traveling, every time you get to a red light, that's like prime like time.
Yeah.
And what they had done was in their like what do you call it, like glove box.
Glove box, yeah.
Yeah, they had kept like loads of these like packets of like food, like oat bars and all this kind of stuff. So at least to him, he's giving the oat bar, and at least it's like not like, okay, I'm just going to straight up ignore these people, which I thought was quite cool.
We also do the same thing. We've got like these.
Oh, you do the same thing, okay?
We've got these Nutri-bars, right?
Okay, so you guys. So you're the same.
Unfortunately, it was different because I normally like so. It was different. So it was a Sardar actually who was begging on the street, which is not something that you actually see in the UK. And he comes up and I was like, you know, I've got the sevas ready in the glove box, right? I'll get it out.
the seva box.
He comes over and he's like, chalo, I've got it ready in my hand. I'll put the window down, hand it to him. He's like, Bhaji, main nahi khana, main meat khana aaj.
You should say, "Aale ba meri."
I can't. This was literally a week ago. It's nuts. I was like, all right, then I'll put the window back up.
Paji, no, except meat. And it's like, no, don't take visa.
Oh, man. I always find that funny that we go into those situations thinking, oh, we're going to do the good thing. and then
what do you do in that situation with it? I don't want it.
And then they say something that doesn't agree with our like point of view. And then that's it. Like the whole conversation is
Actually,
finished.
this is a good point because I've thought about this as well. Can you, as a vegetarian, again, as a vegetarian, if somebody came to you that I don't want any cash, I want to get through the night and I want some food, and you're like, okay, so what do you want to eat? And they said to you, I want chicken turkey or whatever, right? Would you
chicken
buy that
turkey,
for them?
wicked. That's exactly if I'm honest,
I don't know how meat works.
If I'm honest with you, and that's happened to me. I was at the petrol station and this lady was sitting there and she said, I want that sandwich there. I said, all right, fine. I bought her the sandwich. But that, to me, I don't have a major issue. I was like, I'm not going to tell her, like, you know, my mate said Jesus was a vegetarian. No, you just go with it.
I just say intrinsically, I just can't do it.
Yeah,
like I get like I don't know, because I don't think you're wrong, but it's just I couldn't do it.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
Because in my mind, it's like, oh, the money I've earned, and it's the wrong thinking because it's not even my money, but the money I've earned, I don't want it to go towards that.
You don't want to.
The money's from the system, paying the system to the system. So the money doesn't exist. That doesn't actually. The intrinsic value of money doesn't actually exist. We each attain, oh, he's a millionaire and that guy's a poor guy, but essentially, at the end of the day, we're bleeding the same blood.
I had a thing, like I agree. So let me give you an example. I learned that Mitsubishi, the manufacturing company, I don't know how to pronounce it. Mitsubishi.
Who's Mitsubishi?
Car company, and like they create ACs.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about like some bakery company or something.
Mitsubishi, the Japanese manufacturing company, right? So I found out recently that they are one of the main investors in the Japanese fishing industry. And ever since then, I've had a connotation in my mind that I'm going to try and avoid that brand because morally it doesn't align with what I'm like trying to get to. So I wouldn't like I'm conscious now whenever I see Mitsubishi fishing company.
I think if we go down that route, we'll run out of companies.
I think
so.
Right.
I know somebody who's stopped going to a certain coffee shop because they support Israel rather than Palestine, and it's like, to what extent?
No, look at the East India Company, right?
Yep.
If en masse everyone was today to boycott Amazon, their share price would fall through the roof.
Everyone, yeah.
No, I agree. It has a power.
Yeah, so
I do agree. It does have a power, but how many things because then the situation was different. It was very like, okay, you've got goods from the British or you've got goods from your own land. It was very simple. Like it was a 1-to-1.
Now it's
whereas it's so complex now.
Industrialized, yeah.
Like half the time you don't even know where things are from. Like you might think, oh, this is from there. They've just slapped a logo on it. You don't even know where it's come from.
Yeah, it's true.
So I agree with you. I just don't think
they slapped help for farmers, and like red label, whatever.
Yeah. I think to that extent is, even if we did want to follow that same movement now, I don't think we could do it properly. Because I think everything's such a massive melting pot now that I don't know where the kind
where
of
draw the line.
Where would it end up? 'Cause I genuinely think it would mean boycott of everything.
Yeah, you'd have to. You'd literally boycott everything.
We say we're vegetarian, like within quote marks. But for example, I'm wearing this jacket. I don't know where these fibers have come from. If I'm wearing clothes, and somewhere along that production line, like for example, there's people being exploited. Like I don't know. I'm wearing it. Like it's not as simple as what I'm putting in my mouth. I think that's what I was trying to get at. Is that I don't think we're vegetarian for the sake of saying in quote unquote marks we're vegetarian. I think it goes beyond that in a sense. But I don't know what you would call that, because it's more of a principle stance rather than a self-identification, if that makes sense.
These days, everything is an opinion. Everything is I have to pick a side. Either I'm vegan or I'm not vegan. Either I'm, and it's even if you look at foods in supermarkets, like you were talking about, these plant burgers and stuff, nobody knows what's in them. It's a plant burger with 40 ingredients in it, and none of them is rajma or aloo, you know what I mean?
That's the issue I have with it. Like, I would rather somebody say, I'm going to, from now, be more conscious with what I'm doing. And that be the stance, rather than it being this all of a sudden I became this thing.
Make it a lifestyle choice. And I think this is the same thing where, in such Pashaji's Updesh, when the sag grows on the other person's field.
I know people that, for example, are colleagues of my dad's, and when the male got married, his parents had a list of how much they had spent on him up until that day, and they demanded. I'm being serious. This is true
in the
now,
UK.
And they demand. Yeah, and that's the money they demanded. They kept track. This is very common. Like we don't know it because it's not common within us. I'm not even going to name which community it is common in, but it happens.
Yeah.
That's
it's mad, isn't it? It's mad. Yeah. So we're going from that extreme to where Saguri is saying कि कुड़ी वास्ते पैसे नहीं लेना. And the Singhs took it to that extent that we're not taking any money from that family, that to the extent that we're never going to even eat food from their house.
Sahib, how's Jawai service looking now?
Jawai service, do you remember that? That was brilliant.
No,
it's Prana service, wasn't it? Or was it Jawai service?
No, it's Jawai service. That's the issue, isn't it? That's the way it comes from.
Prana service is the best when you go to someone's house and you lie on their couch. And they feed you,
and they feed grapes in your mouth like that.
That's the ultimate prana service. Man. I just want to take time out to say badaiyan to the whole Sikh Panth the whole world, to be fair, on Guru Nanak Dev Ji's Avtar Purb. And we're lucky to live in the house of Guru Nanak Dev Ji, and lucky to be bestowed with their teachings. And if anyone's doing anything in the next couple of days, definitely take a line of their Gurbani, take something, and I'd say reflect upon it and see how it fits into your life and how it's still relevant today. If you meet any of us guys, or if you want to drop us a message, just come into the comments, which we hardly reply to, and just and just comment on your love for Guru Nanak Dev Ji, your Gurbani Tuk that you resonate with. And on that note, I want to ask either one of you, Jawan Singh, Asa Singh, what is one aspect of either Guru Nanak Dev Ji's life, the lineage of Guru Nanak Dev Ji, the house of Guru Nanak Dev Ji, what is one aspect that you've taken away and maybe contemplated on recently?
I think every action Guru Nanak Dev Ji essentially made, whether it was during their travels or whether it was the different people that they essentially saved from this world ocean, each and every single one was not for that moment specifically. I think if you read any of the Sakya, I think that comes across. It was like Sadhguruji had set the stage for all of these happenings to take place for the benefit to happen across multiple generations. I think that's the main reason Sadhguruji gave us Guru Angad Dev Pasha. Like every other Rahbar, they left the message, and then the followers after that set up the institutions. Like you look at any other messenger or any other kind of anybody that says that they are messengers of God, the message was given. To institutionalize that message so it is passed on was done by the followers.
Yeah.
However, in this scenario, Sadhguruji themselves gives us Guru Angad Dev Sache Pasha. I think that's amazing.
Quite a while ago, was it 2 years ago? In the Lake District, when after Asadiwar, we were contemplating on the Kapas Santokh Sut, Jatagandi Satvat and Satvat. That whole interaction of Guru Nanak Dev Ji with the Pandit, and that sort of rebellious side of Guru Nanak Dev Ji, like actually asking why are we actually doing this? A challenge to one's own hypocrisy. Can we actually say that without any moral ambiguity that we are morally and ethically just, because we don't know where our food comes from, we don't know where our clothes come from? Can we hold the moral high ground? And I don't think we can, because it's that continuous reflection of am I in this instance being a hypocrite in any way, shape or form? I think Sadhguru Nanak Dev Ji brought that out. Okay, instead of being outwardly religious and ritualistic or preaching a certain way, why don't you focus on the inner self and focus on these tenets of compassion, patience, humility? Focusing on that is far more important than projecting yourself as being someone or religious.
Living on that sword's edge, as they say, kanyotiki, that as fine as that is, because we don't want a religion as a fad, and we don't want a religion as a, sare, everyone join me, or, follow, subscribe and share and all of that. And whether it be from Guru Nanak Dev Ji themselves or whether it be following successors, but in the house of Guru Nanak Dev Ji, I feel that there are two key elements, and one is seva and the other one is a form of bhakti, a form of upasana, a form of worship essentially. And I think the seva is of everyone. I mean, we've mentioned Bhai Kanhaiya Ji as an upholding example of extensive seva throughout our podcast. I think every episode we've mentioned Bhai Kanhaiya Ji, but they've given us such examples of such contentment and such compassion that you've got a scale of from 0 to Bhai Kanhaiya Ji. You know what I mean? You've been given that scale. You've been given that tangible scale to say that, okay, I'm going to try and be more compassionate today. And this is my example. When you hear katha, when you hear stories, and I think we've got a really beautiful tradition within the Sikh Panth of telling stories, of depicting them in artworks like we've been talking about in the beginning of this, frescoes, the way that the buildings were built. And then we've got, Babaniya, Kahaniya, Putkare, and even in Gurbani, they've said how adults or how seniors are then portraying the message of Guru Sikhi and these tenets that they're upholding and passing to the next generation. And I think those two aspects, so seva, keeping the body physically fit in order for you to then carry out the bhakti side of things. Yeah.
I think this is how broad Sikhi is, that we always reference Bhai Kanhaiya Ji, and I think we kind of automatically assume that we have this kind of image in our heads that, he must have been an Amritdhari, but he actually wasn't. Anyone can be a Sikh. I think we've always had that philosophy that regardless of whether you're Christian, Muslim, Buddhist or Jew or whatever, you could still be a Sikh.
Relating it to Sadhguru Jagatjit Singh Ji, because Sadhguru Jagatjit Singh Ji's Prakash is also this week, and essentially what they made very firm within the Sikhs was that Sadhguru Nanak Dev Ji, like for example, Sadhguru Ji would refer to this book that was written called Guru Kal, which meant the times of the Guru. And Sadhguru Ji said, since when did we say that the Guru started on this date and ended on this date? Sadhguru said, we've completely lost the point of it all by saying it has a start and end. And Sadhguru Pratap Singh Ji says very strongly that Nanak isn't that which they started at some point, and then at some point they are present, and some point there will be an end. Nanak was there when nothing existed. They exist now, and they exist when everything will end. Kavi Pritam Singh Ji, they were talking about it, a Sikh from Kanpur. And that Sikh from Kanpur, after the Asadiwar, Sadhguru Ji had said to that family that correct your pehrava. And that Sikh, his name was Gurbaksh Singh. And that Gurbaksh Singh says, Sadhguru Ji told us to fix our bastar, meaning to wear the correct bana and to live more of a simple and humble life in terms of our actions. And what we're gonna do with all of the money that we've spent. And Sadhguru says, if you have such an issue with that, tell me how much it was. I'll give you that much money. But Sikhi bach jawe, meaning that if Sikhi remains at the end of it, then that is priceless. I can't put money on that, but I can pay you back for all of those things. That is it, isn't it? That there's nothing more expensive than what Guru Nanak Dev Ji has left for us.
So we've been away for a few months now, and I think each of us have probably taken some time away to reflect on what we'd like to get out of the podcast and maybe what we'd like to put out there. I'll start with sort of mine. I'd like to definitely get different perspectives on Sikhi, different perspectives on different elements within Sikh, how Guru Nanak Dev Ji's message is out there in different forms.
Now, the most famous publisher, probably what everybody has heard of, is Jatar Singh and Jeevan Singh. Very famous publishers, and they do great work. Like all of the stuff they publish is amazing. Like all of the stuff, most of the stuff that we access now from Amritsar and all of the different, for example, Steeks and Pothiyan and Granths that we have access to is because they publish them. However, some of those older Granths, they haven't been republished. And it kind of got me thinking of, okay, there must be loads of stuff that we can't access PDFs of. So, for example, that Saki Praman book by Pandit Atma Singh, you can't access that PDF anywhere. Like I have that Granth with me. Nobody can access that book. So obviously the first thing you think of is to scan it, but it's like to get those physical copies as well. Like I think there's something beautiful about having the physical copy. So that definitely, like, just in general, different like manuscripts, different things that we've kind of lost. The resources that we have are so great. I think we can definitely find things that maybe haven't been found before. So I think that's what gets me excited and kind of bringing that to the podcast, whether that is in the form of book reviews or whether that is in the form of like as we're finding this information slowly, like sharing that via this podcast. I think that gets me excited. Like when you're going through it, you don't know like where 4 or 5 hours have gone, where you're like trying to go through this treasure trove, and this feeling you're getting is, oh, you might find something.
A British newspaper archive, specifically looking at articles that were published during the 1800s, and there's like loads of mentions of the Gurkha insurrection and things like that, and it was just interesting to like read about how local Indian newspapers were reporting on this one event and sympathising with the Deputy Commissioner Cowan and his boss Forsyth, expressing sadness that they'd both been discharged from duty. But then also other tabloids and other papers expressing compassion at how unjust of an empire is the British within the UK, expressing concern that this is an act of evil, that so many people have been killed but without due process. It was quite funny. We found where his grave is. Not that we're going to go there, but it's just funny that we could find something like that on Google. I'm at the moment trying to find who Cowan's wife is, trying to find if she wrote any memoirs or like had a diary that's published somewhere. Maybe recorded that memory in her own words. So if anybody has that or knows where I can find it.
Like, I think we take for granted, like, for example, we have Nahar Singh. And when you're researching all this thing, the reference of Nahar Singh is everywhere. Like,
Everywhere.
Nahar Singh MA, Nahar Singh MA, Nahar Singh MA. Like, his reference is everywhere. I'm not joking. But I think we take for granted, like, they did what they did, and we're just reaping from what they've done. We're not building up on what they've done. And they did all of that without the resources we have.
On that note, there is a Virasati Foundation run by, Resham Singh is one of them, and they're actually restoring the Haveli of Kavi Santokh Singh Ji. And it's a really cool project, and definitely give that a follow if you're listening. It's a cause worth funding, worth helping if you can. I think the subscriptions are pretty minimal. I think £5 or £10 you can start with. Let's go for a couple of fun facts, maybe.
Sarabhaji found a place called Find a Spring, and there was 2 listings there of some places in Surrey. The first place we went to was St. John's Baptist's well, or St. John Baptist's well, which was really cool. So it was an actual running well, and the water was naturally coming from that well, which was really cool. But what I ended up finding out was the iron content was way too high in that water. So even though Sarbalok Irasha Hamne, the iron content was just way too high. And then we found this other place which was shared, which was called Hascombe Water Fountain. And it was built in 1877 by somebody called Edward Lee Rowcliffe. And he built it in the memory of his brother. And his only motivation was, obviously, he wanted to do this for his brother.
That clip was interesting because those people were protesting actually having taps installed in the house and a sewage, not a sewage system, a running water system. Because they were so ingrained at collecting
water. Yeah.
It's been lovely, and it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Wait, what was your fun fact, Sahib?
My fun fact is that the farmers are going to protest. Oh. It's not fun, but it's a fact, and I think
it was an insight. It was an insight.
Yeah. Well, is that for season 2? Jawan Singh Ji told us that where he got water from. That's not a fun fact.
But to be fair, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
What happened?